Welcome. Thank you to the Apprenticeship Employment Network for hosting the National Skills Week Industry Workshop. Never before has skills reform been more critical to our nation. Ensuring our workforce has the skills we need for the jobs of the future is critical for rebuilding our economy, especially in the post-COVID environment. Collaboration between government, industry and the community will be vital to the success of our recovery. And it goes without saying that the Morrison government is committed to supporting Australians to stay and work. However, we also need Australians better trained for the jobs needed. And to do that, we need real reform when it comes to skills training in Australia. So we have prioritised skills development as part of the JobMaker strategy, which is designed to set Australia up for the economic success over the next 3 to 5 years. Our multi-billion skills package provides a significant boost to the vet sector. This includes our supporting apprentices and trainees wage subsidy that is providing timely, targeted and scalable support to businesses to keep on their existing apprentices and trainees. This builds on the establishment of the National Careers Institute and the National Skills Commission. These two organisations are working together to strengthen, streamline and improve the delivery of and access to careers information in Australia. Again, I'd like to thank the Apprenticeship Employment Network for hosting this industry workshop, and I hope that you enjoyed today's session. Thanks.
Carl, again, thanks for making the time and effort today to join us. I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Gary, and thanks for the opportunity to be here and to talk about, I guess, apprenticeships and traineeships in particular, about the department's role. I guess both I'd like to, in today's presentation, look at where we were at as at the end of last year, and of course then talk about the impacts of the pandemic on apprenticeships and traineeships. And thanks to Simon for going before me. I was particularly appreciative of that because my daughter was doing her violin practice at the same time, so I was in another room, but I thought I probably didn't need a soundtrack, so I'm glad that I got to go second. I'm a person who's quite happy for people to jump in and have something if they've got a question. When you have that question, there is the chat function, but also don't feel shy about asking a question. I'm not sure, I can't see everyone's faces the way I've got it set up at the moment, which is probably my lack of technical expertise with these sort of things. But I think certainly I've got the chat there, so if you've got a question, perhaps put it in the chat, and then I'm happy for people to take that sort of further verbally. I guess I might start then with the role of the department in apprenticeships and traineeships. So I work in the Department of Education and Training, that's the Victorian department. The department's role is, I guess, as Department of Education, it's a big department. Obviously, schools are a big part of what the department is doing. The training component sits within higher education and skills. That area sort of more broadly looks at the functioning of the vet system and the higher education system more broadly. The bit, I guess, from an apprenticeships point of view, and you've heard from Simon about the regulation. Victoria, I will sort of note, probably is different to other jurisdictions in that we have a split function. We have the VRQA who have a regulatory function, and then we have the department providing policy, funding, and support. That is unique, I think, in Australia. All other jurisdictions kind of combine that in the one area. Of course, that it has its makes it a different way of running things, but it was, I think, based on the thinking that it was good to have your regulation separate from your funding and support functions. So the VRQA is an organisation that is responsible for regulating a whole heap of things, not just apprenticeships. That's what their sort of bread and butter is regulation. And that leaves my team to think about the policy in the apprenticeship space. And as I said, the department has, or Higher Education and Skills has responsibility for the funding. So that's the VET funding, the under Skills First. My team don't get directly involved in that. We may at times, in response to questions or issues that arise, but generally speaking, we're not directly involved in that. There's a whole division that looks after the training market and has those interactions with registered training organisations. My team concentrate more on apprenticeship and traineeship policy and on the support function for apprentices. So really looking at what we can do to both enhance commencement of apprenticeships and traineeships, but also look to completions, which I think is probably a particularly key area that we need to always be working on. To probably start, and I apologise for those that have heard me speak before, and to go through something that you've probably heard previously, but I'll give you a bit of a background about myself. So I'm, as I said, Manager of Apprenticeships and Traineeships in the department. That's a role I've been doing for the last just under 9 years. I've been a public servant for about 21 years. Beginning, so prior to working for the department, I worked for 9 years in an area of the Commonwealth Government called Trades Recognition Australia, which looked at the recognition of tradespeople who'd gained their skills outside of an Australian apprenticeship. And I think that was a really interesting grounding to then work in apprenticeships and traineeships, because it gave me an opportunity to have a look at a lot of people who'd gained their skills overseas and what those models look like. Also to have a look at those people who'd gained their skills in Australia outside of a traditional apprenticeship or traineeship. And so I think that was quite a good grounding. Prior to that, I spent a few years in industrial relations. Again, I think useful in, whilst not specifically related to apprenticeships, in understanding that industrial relations framework, which is really part of our apprenticeship system in Australia. Prior to that, I was sort of my previous job, excluding a few part-time jobs along the way, was I commenced my career as an apprentice, and I thought I'd start, if I can work out how to make my slide go to the next slide, which I may not. Bear with me a second. It's not quite doing what I would expect it to do. I might just see if I can make this change to the next slide, and apologies for my technical incompetence here.
Carl, you may need to, if you've got it in PowerPoint presentation mode,
yes,
you should be able to just forward to the next slide if you click the right mouse button, I think.
Aha. Oop.
Or if you hit the space bar, it might work as well.
Aha, perfect, thank you. Thanks very much, Gary. All right, I thought I'd start here. This is when I began my apprenticeship a long time ago. You can tell it's a long time ago because it's a black and white photograph. And points for those that can pick out who I am. I'm the one on the top right, and this goes back to 1989. I will come back to this photograph. It's not just to show the start of my journey in apprenticeships. I will come back to another issue. This is with a company called NEC Australia, a Japanese company, and you'll see Mr. Sugihara Hari, I think, sitting in the middle at the front there. That's where I began my apprenticeship journey. Despite my incompetence in running slideshows on computers, I actually have an electronics background. I'm a radio tradesperson initially, and this is, I guess, where my journey in apprenticeships started. Things have changed a lot since then in the way apprenticeships work, but of course, in many ways, things haven't changed as well. So I'll talk a little bit about that as we go. Now it's not keen for me to change to the next one. There we go. I thought I might start by running through some of the data, and I guess, as I said, where we were at the beginning of 2019. We were coming off, I guess, a large decline in the number of commencements. You'll see that commencements there at both in both apprenticeships and traineeships have declined over the years. In particular, you'll see that that decline is in the traineeships, and in case you can't see the wording at the bottom, the trade is the blue and the non-trade is red. Now we'll just make a quick, this data is National Centre for Vocational Education and Research data, because each jurisdiction has a different definition or determines that different qualifications will be either an apprenticeship or traineeship. They don't necessarily all look the same. The NCEVA use, I guess, a proxy. So they have a set that they call trade and they have a set that they call non-trade. They roughly equate to what we have in Victoria as apprenticeships or traineeships, but not exactly. So just make that proviso. But what you can see, as I said, is you can see that the apprenticeships and traineeships are looking, have been kind of, well, apprenticeships are roughly the same and traineeships a significant decrease. I would like to just reflect that whilst we saw some quite big numbers in the previous slide, 100,000 or just under 100,000, I think it was 96,000 apprentices and trainees. You'll see in this slide that in fact, if you take out existing workers, the decline has not been as significant as might have looked on the previous slide in commencement. So what we did have in the system, and whilst we're looking at Victorian data here, this was nationally the same. We had a lot of existing worker, in particular in the traineeships. In fact, as this shows, in 2011, we sort of only had 60,000 new workers, and we had somewhere, 35, 36,000 existing workers. There's absolutely a role for existing worker apprenticeships and traineeships, but in some ways they are a different beast. A new worker commencement is somebody who's coming in, they've not worked generally will have not had experience in the trade. They're coming in cold, they're learning a skill. It's often, an initial career pathway, as opposed to your existing worker who may have been working in the industry for many years and has gained quite a number of skills, where there's a mixture of recognition of prior learning with actual new sort of skills acquisition. So you've got a combination there. So I think it's always good to have a look at what's happening with new workers. Absolutely still a decline across the 10 years you see there, but rather than making the current number around a third, it actually is around a half of what it was in 2010. So if we have a look at, now I'm just trying to think, I feel like I've gone too many slides, bear with me. I might skip that one and come back to it. What we do find with commencements, and I've got that says 2014, it's not 2014. It's looking at 2019 data. This is the commencements by age of the last group of apprentices last year. What we find is that around half of those are 19 years and under. This isn't particularly surprising, although I will say that, as you can see there, almost half, just under, are in the age 20 plus. In the red band, you've got 20 to 24-year-olds. In the green band, 25 to 44. And then you even have that small band of purple of 45 years and over when they commence an apprenticeship. Now, this is trade commencement, so these are primarily apprenticeships. If I were to show you, and I haven't got a slide of it, the same thing for traineeships or for non-trade commencements, the data is quite similar. That we have a big group in that sort of under 19 or 19 and under category. In that case, under half, and then more than half over that 20 and above. I think what's significant in this slide, and if you look back over the last 10 years, there's been, I think, a shrinking of that 19 years and under. And if you go back to the point at which I commenced my apprenticeship, or if you go back 10, 15, 20 years ago, you'll find that there would have been a lot more people who were commencing apprenticeships under the age of 19. So what this really shows us is that the people going into apprenticeships are not the same sort of school leavers, early school leavers that they were in the past, that we've got a lot of people coming in who aren't coming in straight from school, that have had other experiences, and a lot there that actually will be needing to receive adult wages too, and adult wages in apprenticeships typically apply to those apprentices that commence after the age of 21. So you see that's the bulk, or not the bulk, but it's a big portion of this group. Looking at commencements is one measure of looking at apprenticeships. I think one of the other areas I would like to talk about, and I think one of the key focuses for the department and for my team and I, is to look at what our completion rate is, because in the end we have people coming in to apprenticeships. What we most want to see is that they get through the apprenticeship, that they're supported through to completion. Now, I'm pretty excited by one component of this graph. This graph shows the individual completion rate. Again, the source is NCEVA, and this is the most recent publication. It came out last month. It is looking at the apprenticeship completions up to the end of 2019. As you'll see by the numbers down at the bottom of the screen, or the years, it's looking at the year of commencement. And so what the data does is have a look at, for those apprentices that commenced in 2015 and therefore should have completed by 2019, how many would have completed. Now, NCEVA has come up with an individual completion rate for 2015 of 55% for Victoria, 55.5, which is narrowly below the trade completion rate nationally, which is at about 57.7. The reason I'm excited by that, as you can see, is that there's a significant jump from 2014 to 2015. In 2014, we had around 47.5% of apprentices completing, according to the NCEVA data, so individuals completing, and we've seen a significant increase. I'd like to talk a bit about, I guess, completions and what drives completions or non-completion. We'll say in this case that improvement in completions was almost entirely due to an improvement in the category of construction trades and their completions. Electrotechnology, for example, as well, has always had quite strong completion rates. Off the top of my head, around 67%. There would also be other trades within the construction trades like plumbing, where I would expect that the completion rate is the same, around 2/3 of apprentices. There's equally trades, often the food trades, butchers, bakers and the like, where the completion rates are significantly lower. So one of the challenges is to look at how we can kind of bring all our completion rates up to a similar level, and ideally we'll bring them up above the national rate. But certainly some reason for hope at the end of the year, last year, around completions. Of course, some challenges there as we go forward as well. The reason that we had start to see that turnaround in completion rates is, I think, primarily due to an improvement in recommencements. And this slide looks at recommencements in Victoria. The blue looks at trade and the red at non-trade. It's much less usual for trainees to recommence a traineeship, and that's partly driven by the duration. Most traineeships are over 12 months. As we know, most apprenticeships are 3 to 4 years. Which means that it's a longer period for people to stay engaged, both and the apprentice staying engaged, but also the employer and whether the work is there at that capacity. But one of the things we did see in Victoria from 2014 is a turnaround in recommencements. And as you can see, we've got a really 2018, 2019, we start getting some really high figures for the number of recommencements, and this is exciting because I think the number of commencements on the one hand, is important, but the recommencements, we don't want to lose people at start, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked out with one employer doesn't mean that it won't work out with another employer. So I think this is a very important trend and a very positive one. It kind of in some ways counteracts that trend that I showed you in an earlier slide of the declining commencements. If we're seeing people recommence and then go on to complete, that's a very good thing. NCEVA's done quite a bit of work around the reasons for non-completions of apprenticeships, and they have, and this I don't think is a surprise, have found that the employment-related reasons are the most common reasons for non-completion. These include interpersonal difficulties with employers and colleagues, not liking the work, being made redundant, and low wages. I think in particular that first one, how do we sort of, those interpersonal difficulties, and they'll come up in any workplace. It's not something that applies to apprenticeships and traineeships alone, but it is an area where I guess for particularly, I guess, the younger group, for that half that are 19 and under, this may be their first employment experience. They may be uncertain about how to act in an employment circumstance. And that may sort of result in difficulties with their employer. It also goes to how the employer, the employer's capability in actually supporting an apprentice or trainee. They're not the same as another employee. They do require, the employer has signed up to take that apprentice or trainee on a journey which takes them from having no or limited skills through to being a skilled and qualified tradesperson or skilled worker. Not liking the work, I guess, is another thing that is an interesting thing. It's this concept, and I think it's an important one where you might love watching, Formula One racing, but if you go to work in your local mechanics workshop, you're not going to be working on Formula One race cars. And so it's having an understanding that what the workplace looks like. I suppose that is something that you're not going to understand fully from seeing it on TV or having a concept. You really probably have to have had that opportunity to spend some time in workplaces, to have had exposure through a pre-apprenticeship or through some sort of previous training to get an understanding of what that occupation is actually about. Being made redundant and obviously a key concern at the moment is another issue, and low wages. It can be one of the trade-offs for an apprenticeship in particular, probably with a lesser extent with traineeships, is that lower wage and being able to say, well, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. If I get through my apprenticeship, I accept a lower wage as a way of obtaining a career, obtaining skills, and coming out as a skilled tradesperson. That will work for some people, for others it won't, and of course it depends on their demand, the demands of their lifestyle. As we find, as we've got more people who are older apprentices, when they come in, they may have more commitments. They may have a house, they may have a mortgage, they may have children. So I think those also that impact of wages on that group. I guess off-the-job training is often one of the least frequent reasons for given for not completing, and that's not surprising. The formal training ultimately is 1 day a week or less of the apprenticeship. The real bulk of it is that learning in the workplace. NCEVA also found, and again, that it doesn't come as a surprise, that apprentices often leave during early in their contract, and it really is about, well, I guess if they're not prepared for that workplace, if they're not able to establish those relationships in the workplace, then that means that it's going to impact on them sooner rather than later. NCEVA found a number of other reasons and I guess factors. Perhaps not surprisingly, those people that are excited about a trade do well. Those that kind of just end up in apprenticeship because they were looking for a job and this is what they found, they answered an ad, they didn't really have a preconceived idea about what that was, they didn't do so well. The completion rates are generally with larger, experienced employers, with a well-organised system for managing their apprentices, and that small employers tend to have lower completion rates, and that doesn't mean, of course, that there aren't small employers that do fantastically well with their apprentices and support them, but it does mean that for many small employers, it can be difficult to find that time to support the apprentice and to sort of balance that against the priorities of the business. I think one of the things that's important about group training, and in the end we're here in a group training conference, is that group training operate like those large employers, and what they can do is bring some of that large employer approach to small business. And I think that's one of the exciting things about group training, one of the powerful things, and one of the reasons that this model can really work both for the apprentice, for the small business that uses a group training organisation, and for the group training organisation. Likewise, employers with high completion rates have rigorous recruitment practices, and I think again that is a strength of the group training model, and a strength that they can bring to smaller businesses, that they can actually find they can really look for those individuals that have that likelihood of completing, that have a passion or an interest in the trade, that have the underpinning skills, and that have undertaken their schooling that will allow them to have the maths that may be required for, say, an electrical apprenticeship, that sort of thing. And that really goes to the next point, which looks at vet teachers, and that they've noted that apprentices often lack fundamental skills, and this relates to sort of their mathematics, their English skills. So it is important, that recruitment is so important. It's not to say that people with lower academic skills can't go into apprenticeships, but it means that they need to be identified and they need to be supported. And we need to be clear that I guess apprenticeships do require some fairly considerable academic skills, in particular maths. And one of the last things that the NCEVA found is the completion of apprenticeship is associated with better employment outcomes and higher wages. And that probably, again, doesn't come as a surprise. So for those that stick it out, that do complete, it actually really does, provide a benefit for them. So I did want to go to gender. I think one of the reasons that it didn't come out in or not in those highlighted areas of the NCEVA, I think is, and perhaps it's implied rather than explicit, is that the workplace culture. And I think one of the things is for any workplace is that it needs to be welcoming to a diverse range of people. And one of the problems in the apprenticeship system, as I see it, is that we don't have that diversity, in particular in gender. Again, I'm concentrating here on, and as you can see, and this is the predominantly male in apprenticeships, as you can see across all those years. What has been disappointing is that the number of women undertaking apprenticeships has dropped in Victoria since 2013, that we actually have half the number of women commencing an apprenticeship in Victoria in 2019 by comparison back to 2013. I think that's very disappointing. I think it's something that I would like to see change. And I know, I guess, when women in apprenticeships, if I took the hairdressers out of these numbers, we'd see this significantly drop again. So if we looked at the construction trades, at those ones that actually where we've seen this real increase in completions, where we've got strong completions in electrical and plumbing trades, if we looked at women in those trades, they would represent under 2%. And I think this is something where we have to look at how the apprenticeship system becomes more diverse, has more women, more Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, more people with a disability. How do we ensure that we're encouraging a broad range of people into apprenticeships and traineeships, and bringing those benefits, particularly to that wider group. Now at non-trade, so our traineeships, as you can see, much more heavily weighted to women, but given that we've had significant drops in the commencements in non-trade or in traineeships and at a national level since 2011, a real concern, because we've really lost a lot of women from the apprenticeship and traineeship system. And if I go back to that photograph of me at the start of my apprenticeship, you know, back in 1989, what it was a photograph of a whole heap of men. There wasn't a woman to be seen, and I think that, you know, that has been the tradition of apprenticeships, and I think it is something that we need to change. I thought, to allow for a bit of a midway break, I wanted to put a question, and it's not the midway slide, because as you can tell by the time I've only got 15 minutes left. It's sort of a little bit of a later slide, but it was after all the graphs and things. I wanted to put to you and see if I can get an answer. Somebody could put it in. How many Australia's Prime Ministers completed an apprenticeship? I wondered if anyone was willing to either pipe up, to unmute and give us a figure, or to put it in the chat. Anyone willing to have a go?
I'll guess Carl and say 5. Oh, there we go. We've got 10 from Sonia.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you,
Say
Gary.
0. 0?
We've got a 0.
Yeah.
We've got a pessimist,
Well,
I think.
let me say, oh yes, no. There we go. Nicole has it. There have been 2 that I understand, as far as I can, I've been able to find. There have been 2 Australian Prime Ministers that completed an apprenticeship. Somebody might test me on who they were. Just a sec, I'll find my piece of paper. And that was Chris Watson, who was a printer, and Ben Chifley, who was an engine driver. Now, I think probably if we looked at those in the current state, the printer would be an apprenticeship and the engine driver would probably be a traineeship, but they both did complete apprenticeships. Now, if anyone finds an obscure reference to a Prime Minister and that I've missed, fantastic, let me know. Nicole, well done. So I think it is important because I think often we don't think about the people undertaking apprenticeships and traineeships, that they might be Prime Minister one day. And frankly, we should. We should think about apprenticeships and traineeships as a journey into a whole heap of opportunities. You're not, when you get those occupational skills, you might do it for a year, you might do it for 10 years, you might do it for life. But it's really about, I guess, it's a pathway, and I think sometimes we undersell the fact that it can be a pathway to many things. I guess, I didn't start my apprenticeship thinking that I would end up working in the public service. I probably had a very vague idea about what the public service was, and that's where I've ended up. Two Australian Prime Ministers went to the highest level of public service in serving the country, coming off the back of an apprenticeship. It's a pity, I think, from my perspective, that they're examples that go back a long way into history. I'd like to see a few more recent examples, but well done and thank you. I'll move on to my next slide. All going well? Whoop. I've upset it again. Bear with me a moment. Okay, so I'd like to talk over the last sort of 10 or so minutes the impacts of the pandemic. We've found that a lot of Victorian apprentices and trainees currently have their training on hold as a result of COVID-19. Now, I'm using that term on hold. It's not an official term. As those that are familiar with the apprenticeship system will not be familiar with terms like suspension. I'm using on hold on purpose. We are conscious that there will be people who've been stood down under industrial relations requirements that won't have been suspended formally, have had their apprenticeship suspended or their traineeship suspended, and I think we have to be of the view that the numbers we're seeing are probably the tip of the iceberg. At the moment we have to, in the current restrictions, we have to think that large numbers of apprentices and trainees will be suspended at the moment, essentially, that they won't be able to go to the workplace. There will be some, such as those working in construction trades or working in aged care, that will be able to still work, but there will be a number that are suspended. Of course, those restrictions also limit the capacities of the TAFE and training system to deliver training and assessments. In particular, I think whilst there are, again, those that are able to work at the moment are also able to attend training, I think there has been the need, obviously, to provide a lot more online training. Apprenticeships in many ways don't lend themselves well to online training. Some traineeships do more so. And I guess this has a risk of both reducing completions if those suspensions don't come back and become sort of ongoing active apprenticeships or traineeships again, but also to delay that pipeline of skilled workers and tradespeople. So what have we done? The Victorian government has launched a retrenched apprentices and trainees program that's delivered by the Apprenticeship Employment Network. So it is, I guess, a key way of being there and ready to support apprentices and trainees who lose their job at this time. It is looking at being able to both identify, so that the apprentice or trainee says, look, I've been retrenched, to support them and to try and get them back into employment so that they can finish their apprenticeship or traineeship. And that goes back to that slide a little bit earlier about recommencements. We want, if people lose their jobs at this time because of the situation, we really want to get them back in. We don't want the effort that they've put in to their apprenticeship to be lost. We don't want the effort that their training provider has put in to be lost. Even I guess the effort of their previous employer. We want to take them and bring them through to completion. As part of that, we have the Apprenticeship Support Officer program, which has been around since 2011, that looks to providing support to apprentices and trainees, to apprentices, not trainees, to support them, particularly in their first year, as per what Ensiva said, that was the area of highest risk, to help them, I guess, work towards completion. We've also been working at a national level through what was formerly the COAG, Council of Australian Governments. It's not called COAG anymore. We're not sure, or I don't have the proper title for it, Skills Council. And we've got a working group where we're working with the Commonwealth and with other jurisdictions to look at what both be to understand what's happening nationally and to look at what we can do to keep apprenticeships and traineeships working. As part of that, we're talking to industry. We're supporting training providers in Victoria to keep that training available. We are providing assistance, as I said, through the Apprenticeship Support Officer program, through our continued funding of group training organisations, and supporting school-based apprenticeships and apprentices and trainees to complete their school-based apprenticeship and traineeship, and whether that is directly or whether that is that they need to complete the formal training to contribute to their VCE or VCAL if the employment is not a possibility at this point. The Commonwealth Government has also jumped into the space with their Supporting Apprentices and Trainees program and through JobKeeper. I won't speak to those. I know Linda White is speaking as part of these sessions and will be much better placed to talk to the Commonwealth's response. But they're those two things, so the having a wage subsidy and having JobKeeper have certainly meant that we've got cancellations. In fact, I will say that our cancellations are lower than they would normally be at this point. So that's positive. People are holding in there. It does feel like a holding pattern, and I sort of worry about where we'll go over the coming months and years. But those initiatives are helping keeping it in that holding pattern. Longer term effects, various sources indicate the impact of declining commencements is much larger than just those in the system, and research by the Mitchell Institute indicates low commencements could persist for several years, which will impact skills formation, youth labour market, and of course that pipeline of skills that come out the other end. And they use figures such as seeing a drop of 30% in apprenticeships and traineeships, a significant drop. And as you can see, over recent years we've had that fall already in commencements nationally. So such a decline is something we really want to do everything to stop from happening. I think the role of GTOs, of group training organisations at this time, is really, really important. It's to provide that employment for an apprentice or trainee across the duration of their training contract, including across multiple employers or multiple host businesses. And I think that that is really a strength that's there for group training in a time where once we're through this and we see the economy begin to recover, that I think many employers will be uncertain, you know, is it a risk to take on an apprentice for 3 or 4 years? Group training, I think, are well placed to take that, to provide that sort of service, and to for the business that's not confident that they've got 3 to 4 years of work, to be able to know that they can take on an apprentice through group training or a trainee. And that if the work does run out, that they're able to bring them back to the group training organisation, and the group training organisation can then look at getting them with another employer that does have sufficient work for them to get through to completion. So I think that's a real strength at this time of group training. I think also that they're providing support to their apprentices and trainees, and that their role in supporting the employment of underrepresented groups, including some of that cultural change I was talking about making apprenticeships and traineeships, I guess, a welcoming place for people from a diverse range of backgrounds, and from you know, trying to sort of break down those traditionally male-dominated trades, so that they're an area that women can go into as well. So I think you know, GTOs are particularly important at this time, and I'd probably like to end with the last few minutes just to say, you know, I'd like to hear from you, or for those who are willing to sort of jump in quickly, what ways you think group training organisations might help boost commencements in the current environment and in the near future. I think particularly we have to be looking to 2020 to 2021, and how we ensure that those students that leave school this year, at the end of this year, are able to go into apprenticeships and traineeships, that those people that are changing careers, that have maybe lost their jobs, are able to go into apprenticeships and traineeships. So I'd be pleased to, you know, I'd like to open it up there for a minute or two to ask for any thoughts on what the role of GTOs might be in this space.
Carl, I think a question that I've got for you, I know there's quite a number of reviews going on at the moment with various government departments, you know, things like school to work transitions and the secondary school vet system, and also major projects. Again, I think they're two areas where I think group training companies have been underutilised in the last 5 or 6 years. So keen on your views on if you think there's any opportunity there for group training companies to start looking in those sectors.
I think absolutely. I probably would be best placed to speak on. I think that major projects are, you know, as we look at this, and Victoria, as you know, has sort of already had a significant investment in infrastructure. There is the major project skills guarantee, as you know, that sort of looks at having 10% of the workforce on major projects, or of the hours undertaken by the workforce to be done by apprentices and trainees. Absolutely, and I think it falls to one of those examples where I was talking about the strengths of GTOs. You know, not all those projects will go for 4 years. They're all at different stages, and it is group training, I think, are well placed to sort of bring apprentices between projects, and it may be that an apprentice is working on a major project and then goes and works in something in a domestic environment, or a smaller commercial site, or whatever, but I really see an important role for group training in that. I think, again, group training has sort of been involved in that pre-apprenticeship space, in trying to encourage people through from pre-apprenticeships into apprenticeships. I think, again, that's something that's going to be vital in the coming sort of months and years.
Thanks, Carl. I see we're right on 11:30 now. So first of all, I'd just like to thank you and Simon for your presentations today. I know it's tough in this environment. It's hard to engage with the audience when everyone's sort of sitting in their kitchens and bedrooms and wherever else. Thank you to everyone that has participated. We'll be able to provide those presentations if anyone would like to see them in more detail later on.